Okay, so the title of my story is Gay Party of One. I was born and raised in Bohemian Echo Park, surrounded by all kinds of ethnicities, races, and cultures. First, there was my own close-knit, second-generation, bilingual, Spanish, Cuban, Mexican family with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins nearby, all having a loving influence in our lives. My childhood friends were an international bunch: Caucasian, Latino, Asian American, Czech, German American, French, Italian, Armenian, and Jewish. And my first girlfriend in 4th grade was Scottish. As kids, my parents tried hard to assimilate and Americanize us. Even though they were proud of our heritage, they were self-conscious about fitting into a society that treats brown folks sometimes like second-class citizens. So we switched over to English mainly in our house when I started kindergarten, and my parents didn't feel the need to follow certain traditional Latino customs. My sister never had a quinceañera. There wasn't menudo and tortillas every Sunday for breakfast. And perhaps most shocking of all, we were not Catholic. Ay, Dios mío. We did, however, have a piñata every birthday, so that was cool. I grew up believing that we were all one big, happy family, no matter who or what we are. As a kid in my non-traditional Latino family, I sometimes did things some people might have seen as clues if they were trying to figure out my future sexual orientation. Things like hand-sewing clothes for my sister's Barbie doll, or being fascinated by my mom putting on her makeup. I perked up whenever I saw TV's Robert Conrad, star of The Wild Wild West, stripped down to his waist to fight some bad guy. And I was aware of the athletic legs of some of the neighborhood dads who ran around in Bermuda shorts during the hot summer months. In middle school, I wasn't belting out show tunes in my bedroom or having crushes on boys. The clues then were my love of dance, hanging out with more gal pals than boy buddies, and having an eye for fashion. Fred Siegel hip hugger pants, English-style paisley shirts, and purple suede shoes. In high school, things started to become more clear. I wasn't feeling it when it came to the girls with whom I was trying to have a relationship beyond just friends. Shortly after turning 18, after my first gay hookup, I came out to my best friend, Richard. Richard and I had a relationship that could only be described as a true bromance. Lots of physical affection, sleepovers in our backyard, even showers together. But no sex. Richard was as hetero as they come. He had opened my heart like no one had ever done before. I was never closer to any friend or sibling like I was to him. Our bond gave me the courage to come out. Plus, I was in drama school at the time, so big props to the theater, that gay bastion of culture. I felt safe within the Los Angeles City College Theater Arts Academy, being around other artistic misfits who were discovering their true selves. Feeling safe was critical at that time, since homosexuality was still illegal, even in California, until 1976. But I was still pretty cautious about revealing my sexual orientation to people. Then I met the first real love of my life, a fellow classmate named Danny. We jumped into our first gay relationship that lasted almost 6 years. My parents started having suspicions about my sexuality. They thought something was up for a while because my new boyfriend, Danny, was spending a lot of nights at my place in the basement bedroom that my father had set up for me so I could have more privacy as the eldest son. My father came downstairs one morning, unannounced, and discovered Danny sleeping in my bed while I was in the bathroom. Our excuse was that we were working late nights on scenes for drama school, and it was easier for Danny to just crash in my room rather than drive all the way home to West LA. The next night, my parents started questioning us about our relationship, and things got ugly fast. My father started yelling, accusing Danny of seducing me into being gay. Ridiculous. Not that Danny couldn't have seduced me. He was a beautiful boy, but I was already queer when I met him, and I fell in love with him instantly. My father kicked Danny out, even though I wanted him to stay. Thank God that he didn't. My macho, non-traditional, emotionally volatile father went ballistic, beating me around my head and my body with his fists. I was in shock. Being hit by my father years after I had outgrown spanking was insane, and I couldn't bring myself to hit him back. I felt defenseless. After things calmed down, we went upstairs to the living room and tried to talk it out. It was pathetic. I tried to explain my sexuality as a need for a male figure in my life who was more emotionally connected to me than my father. Lame. My mother's reaction was classic, telling me that she wanted grandchildren. Thank God my sister took care of that and had 3 wonderful kids. My father just sat there, fuming. He was devastated. His first son was gay. It was like I had stabbed him in the heart with a knife. Right after that awful night, my parents and I adopted a don't ask, don't tell policy. They didn't ask about my gay life, and I never told. They were deeply disappointed, and they were worried about my new lifestyle. But they never made me an outcast. Even so, no matter how tolerant my family was, I still felt very alone. I would sometimes ask myself, if I was born gay, where did it come from? Where was the gay uncle or aunt or grandparent that I could blame for this? Whose fucking genes did I inherit? Then in my late 20s, I found out that my younger brother, Robert, was gay. He came out to me as I was driving him home one night from a family get-together. I finally had an ally in a family of straight, non-traditional Latinos. How did I not see the clues? Robert was a very private person, gorgeously handsome, with a cool, laid-back personality and a wicked sense of humor. As brothers, we didn't hang out together much after childhood. Robert was 6 years younger, and he went off to college at UC Santa Cruz after high school to study architecture and interior design, while I was running around Hollywood trying to get noticed as an actor. So I didn't know much about his private life. I didn't know any of his friends, except for his roommate, a very talented and eccentric visual artist. What I suspected, and eventually found out, was that Robert's looks garnered a lot of attention at gay bars, in gay after-hours clubs, a potentially dangerous reality at the time. The AIDS epidemic was exploding. People were finally able to be who they really were and accepted for their authentic selves, and then they started dying. My parents gradually accepted my sexuality and the fact that they had a gay son, thanks in part to my sister and a few of my extended family members who convinced them that it wasn't the end of the world. This made my brother's coming out much less dramatic. There was no screaming or fighting. My family just rolled with it. Robert contracted HIV in 1990. After going through a decade of non-stop grief, losing at least 2 friends a year to AIDS, I knew what was coming. Mine and my brother's sexuality was no longer an issue. My parents were dealing with a son who was sick, and that's all that mattered. They could barely fathom what was happening, but their strength was incredible. They were separated at the time, but they did everything they could to care for my brother. Towards the end of his life, Robert moved in with my mom, who became his main caregiver. Robert died from AIDS in May of '92, during the weekend of the LA riots. It was surreal. My father and I were stuck in our houses under the city curfew that was imposed at the time, and my sister was living in Tennessee. My mother was the only one by Robert's side when he took his last breath. I never had the chance to talk to my father about what happened that night in my basement bedroom. I wanted to forgive him and tell him all about my life as a sexual outlaw who loved his macho papi. He was a great storyteller. And even though he might have been embarrassed that I'm airing our dirty laundry on Victory Boulevard, he'd probably say, "It's fine, as long as you stay in the family." Thank you.